Danielle, so good to have you on the show. Super excited to chat. For people who don't know you, could you just give us a brief kind of intro and then we can go from there?
Sure. I'm Danielle Lajoie. I am the Vice President of Brand Communications and Integrated Marketing at Exos. We're a human performance company that help Fortune 100 companies and elite athletes reach their highest potential. We really believe in holistic wellness. It's to you, and we try to really meet people where they are.
And for people who, there are so many different health and wellness and products out there. Could you just explain what does that actually mean? Like just in super simple terms, imagine that on a toddler.
Yes, thank you. Yes. Yeah. So basically we started as an elite athlete company 25 years ago, training elite athletes. We still to this day have a very robust athlete performance institutes across the country where we train elite athletes. NFL Combine program is one of the biggest in the country, but we've translated that and we've actually now brought that methodology to the masses through our corporate wellness program. So we're able to work with Fortune 100 companies, work with their CEOs and their C-suites on what does a culture of wellness look like at your company? What does that look like? It can look like a fitness center that you're building. It can also look like virtual wellness programs. And it can also look like, let's sit down with your leaders and really talk about, are they burnt out? What are they facing in their day that's maybe getting in the way of them giving their teams permission to take an hour lunch to be able to go outside, get sun on their face, and just really being able to implement different types of initiatives and programs that really help a company thrive versus feeling like they're just getting through the day, but really helping ultimately companies be more productive and bring more money to the bottom line because they feel better.
And I think it's so needed, especially now where people are sat down pretty much their whole day. I saw a chart the other day from the venture capital firm Andreessen Horowitz, and I think it was number one or two, but the marketing role, they're the role where people spend most of their time sat down. Mm-hmm. And I think that, especially now where, great, we have all these new AI tools, which is brilliant. They can save us time. Absolutely. But I think what we're all seeing is people are using these AI tools, but it's meaning that you kind of end up doing more work or because there are more things or possibilities of things that you can do. So I think that, especially at a time like now, I think this kind of product or tool is super impactful.
Absolutely.
Could you tell us kind of how, what are the types of conversations you're having with people when you're saying, great, people are burnt out, use our product? What does that look like?
Yeah. And I think it's it's less about, use click here and buy, use our product, right? And I think it's more, working with the teams and the leadership to understand what are the challenges they're facing as an organization and how can this actually be a solution to help solve those problems. So I'll give you an example. We're working with an organization right now on what does it look like when nothing can change in your day? Okay. So your day, like you just said, we have to be more productive with less people and less money. Great. Well, we still need our people to feel good because if they feel good, they're going to produce more and ultimately make more money. And so we're coming in and actually doing what we call executive immersion programs, where we're sitting down with the leaders in small groups and we're identifying the issues. We're providing them with exercises and tools to really be able to implement small changes, small behaviors, but also helping them understand the science behind it. And so things like sleep, it's not just about movement. You might not be able to move your entire day. You might have to sit all day because you're in a meeting all day, right? But what did you do the night before? What time did you go to bed? How many hours?
I could have slept more. I need that.
Right. I could have slept more. Right. But it's not even just and then how are you preparing for sleep throughout the day? Make sure you're not having coffee after a certain time, right? Just small behaviors that help people just ultimately optimize their day. So it doesn't necessarily have to be movement. And I think a lot of people think fitness, wellness is movement, but sometimes it's actually what you're eating. Sometimes it's taking 5 minutes to go outside and get sun on your face and the science behind what that means neurologically. And so we have neuroscientists on our team. We have methodologists on our team. We have biomechanics on our team. Biomechanists on our team. And so we're thinking constantly about the health and safety of your entire day and the experience you're having with yourself, with your team, and the environment, which is also a huge piece of it. What does the environment feel like at your office? And how does that actually promote wellness and health versus maybe potentially make you even more burnt out?
Yeah. And it's an interesting one because I think a lot of leaders at the moment, their top of mind purchase in terms of buying new things into the business to drive revenue, I would say is usually it's some kind of AI tool, let's call it. And I think they're probably not thinking about they should be, but they're probably not thinking about, okay, let's do a fitness center or something like that. I think the interesting thing is really if you do the two together, you're going to get the best results.
100%. Absolutely. And our virtual app actually does, we don't even call it an app, we call it a platform because it truly is an integrated system with the in-person system. And it does offer, obviously, it's AI powered, and it offers an opportunity for the user to be able to quickly get a game plan, quickly get something, but also have an opportunity to one-on-one chat with a coach.
Yeah.
Person, a human, someone who's actually going to be there for you and have that judgment that maybe sometimes the AI piece doesn't, but the AI makes us faster. And so we're also working with our athletes right now on some cool technology that's, thinking about what is AI, what can AI do to make us smarter and make us quicker and make us be able to, in an instant, get data that we weren't able to get before that will make an athlete run faster in the next game or prevent injury. Or we're seeing in the video that they're tweaking their ankle every single time. What can we do to actually prevent that? And being able to see that way quicker than we ever could before. But it's interesting, right? Because you talk about people don't have time to work out or do this during the day, but it's like we think about athletes and what we've learned from athletes. Athletes recover just as hard as they work, as they train.
Tell us more about that.
Right. So this is where our methodology began, is obsessing the athlete's day and obsessing what their environment looks like. And so when people come, and we would love to have you on your team, when people come to our headquarters or any of our athlete performance institutes, they're amazed because everything's under one roof. They get the best food from our chefs. They get the best experience from a physical therapist. They're getting the best nutrition and diet from a dietitian, nutrition advice from a dietitian. And then obviously they're getting the best training from a staff of coaches who are thinking about their entire day, their entire week, and their entire season. And they're using AI to create game plans that are actually personalized to those athletes, right? And it's all under one roof. Why can't we do the same for corporate athletes?
No, 100%. And
right?
I think that's an interesting kind of, I was speaking to some of my colleagues the other day, and a lot of us do sales, and a lot of that time is spent kind of list building, looking at screening for a long time.
Yep.
And as a result of that, a lot of people have started wearing blue light glasses, or they've got a prescription because their vision's gone because they've spent so much time looking at a screen.
Yes.
And the funny thing is that we're treating our brains like an athlete, but not necessarily our body, and there's a bit of a disconnect there.
Yes.
Which I don't know is a weird one. What are some of the kind of like famous athletes or athletes that we would know that you guys work with?
Yeah. If you've heard of Saquon Barkley or Odell Beckham Jr. or Mahomes, yes, we've trained some big athletes. We also, with the World Cup just happening, we worked with the German team in the past, and so you name it, we've worked with an athlete in that sport. And so we've really we've had the opportunity and the privilege to be a part of their journeys, which is great.
And a question I have, which is in terms of marketing something like this, my assumption is that, in theory, maybe this is a wrong take, but it should be quite easy, because if you say to a company, do you want your employees to be healthier? If they're not saying no, you probably shouldn't be working for them.
Right. Yep.
So what is it? What is your marketing approach? Who do you have to market to, and how does that work?
Yeah, great question. And I thought the same thing when I joined a few years ago, 5 years ago. And I think it's the opportunity we have. Because we serve so many different types of buyers, right? I just explained to you 2 types of buyers. We actually also have other products that we serve to a direct to consumer, which is, personal trainers and practitioners actually want to learn from us. And we sell, accreditation services and programs. But in the main sort of focus areas of enterprise wellness and then in elite, you can imagine, those are 2 completely different types of buyers. But for us, it's really about understanding the problems we're trying to solve for the buyer we're speaking to. And then, really thinking about the sales funnel as one story we're telling, right? We're one Exos. Like I said at the beginning, we're a human performance company. And whether you're trying to not have pain while you're playing with your children, or you're trying to go to the Super Bowl, we have a program that can help you get there. However, the marketing to your question looks a little bit different depending on how the conversation we're having. So for example, I could say like a CFO, if we're speaking with a CFO, they don't buy Exos because they want their employees to work out, right? Like ultimately, what are they thinking about? They're investing because they want a healthier and more productive workforce to ultimately help the company grow. But the employee, think about the employee now. The employee is waking up thinking, well, I'm not thinking about healthcare costs or productivity for my company. I'm thinking about, I want to feel better today. I want to get a workout in. Maybe I want to have more energy. And so our job as marketers and as brand leaders is to connect those two realities and to find the common ground that allows a CFO to understand the power of what we can do for their company, while also allowing this employee to see like, wow, I want to be a part of this company who has changed the lives of in over 25 years, has changed the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. And also because they've trained elite athletes, I know they know the science and the methodology behind it, right? So it's helping people believe in that, but also understanding that at that mid-funnel range, like who are the buyers and who are we actually trying to serve?
Yeah. And what I always like to ask people is, because especially with marketing, everyone's kind of using the same channels.
Yes.
Some kind of things are kind of working. It's rare to find something that a lot of people aren't already doing.
Yes.
In terms of your distribution of different channels that you're working for kind of customer acquisition, what are the ones which are really working, which people wouldn't expect?
Yeah.
I think that would be a good one to know.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think like at many, I think especially in the age of AI and where we're at, we're really trying to differentiate ourselves in the marketplace. And because we do have this heritage in sport, I think what really has been working for us is like that snackable education type of content that allows people to see what we're doing. And what I always say is experiencing what we're doing is the best way to understand what we do, right? Like I could sit here for hours and explain it to you, but if you came to our facility, you'd be like, oh, I get it.
100%.
Or if you sat in one of our immersions. And so what we're finding is it's really like, let's test and learn with your team. And so the more we can get people to actually come out and experience what we're doing in person, that's been a big one. But I think before we can do that, it's let's show you what we're doing, and kind of as the sausage is being made, how do we show you the process at which we're getting an athlete to that final moment? Because the win is great, right? But the win takes the process. And so how do we show people like, this is the process that we can help you. We can be the system built into your process to help your team win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in terms of that, so obviously you've got the kind of, just to make sure I fully understand, you've got obviously people or teams who are visiting the facility in person. Amazing. Yeah. That's super clear. Yeah. Could you tell us a bit more about, and like location wise, like where are those locations? And then also maybe the kind of talk us through the physical and then the non-physical side of it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So we have 4 athlete performance institutes. Our headquarters though is in Phoenix. We really try to, bring people to Phoenix when we can. That being said, we go
Mahomes goes to Phoenix, I'm assuming.
Mahomes goes to Phoenix. He does. But what I would say is we also very, very, typically we'll go to people's offices as well and bring the programming to them. So, we work with 25% of the Fortune 100. Those companies, we go to them, most of the time. Sometimes their C-suite will come and we'll have that great experience and they'll get in the cold plunge and they'll have the moment like the athlete does where they're like, wow, this is life-changing. How do I bring this back? But I think it's really about, like I said before, what's the environment at your campus and how can we actually elevate the environment there? Because that's ultimately where people are going to be working every day. In terms of virtual, like I said, we have our platform, our virtual platform, our coaching experience, and that is as integrated of a virtual experience as it can be to bring the experience to life that you would get in person, right? You're getting access to coaches one-on-one. There's, similar to other wellness apps, there's content that they can go in and take classes, but beyond just the movement, there's nutrition information, there's sleep information, there's all different types of small snackable videos that allow people to understand the science behind what they can do with their teams and what they can do for themselves versus it just feeling like, oh, I did my workout and check the box, So we really try to feel like we'd really want it to be an embedded resource and not something that feels like an add-on or a perk, because that's really not what we're ultimately trying to solve for.
Yeah. And I was obviously doing some stalking before we kind of spoke now. And one of the things you've written on LinkedIn is this piece around how you increase employee engagement by 60%.
Yeah.
I'll leave that as a statement. If you could help fill in the blanks, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, now this is a topic I could speak about forever. I mean, here's what I'll say about employee engagement. I think in general, it's an underutilized area of brand. And I think where I see such an opportunity for companies is that employees prove the brand every day. Employees are your biggest marketing asset or resource if you want them to be. But there needs to be that connection to the mission and the vision and the values, and they need to believe in what you're doing. And so if you can turn your employees on to what you're doing and bring them into the process, they don't just amplify the brand, they become the brand for you, right? At Exos, we have 3,000 plus employees, most of which are embedded with our clients, right? They sit with our clients every single day. And so they have to be, not only do they have to embody Exos, but they have to embody the client's brand as well. And so the more that you can embed the mission and the vision and the leadership behaviors and things that you want them to know and educate them on, the more they will manifest the brand in action. And so to me, I'm all about employee advocacy. It's something we're working on right now. And I think it's such an underutilized area of branding and marketing that I think I'm seeing a couple of companies, like I'm seeing a trend right now that, Gap and Starbucks just came out with some really interesting creator programs for their employees. And I think
tell us more about those, please.
Yeah, we're going to see more of them. So basically I'm sure you've seen, but like on TikTok, you watch these Starbucks employees. Like I'm mesmerized by these ASMR videos of them making all the drinks. And I think Starbucks saw that as like an opportunity instead of, I think, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, we were trying to put guardrails on employees posting. Like we were all so nervous.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. And now I think it's like, let's embrace these creators. I mean, they are the biggest, they are going to be the biggest salespeople for the company. Brands are not getting as much love in the algorithm.
I mean, I saw, sorry, right in, but I saw that, if you post on a LinkedIn page, it typically only reaches 1.6% of your followers. Yes. So it's exactly that. Use the employees to fill that gap.
Exactly. And I think I keep going back. I'm like, I don't want our employees to feel used. I want them to feel amplified. Like, what is actually their brand and how do we help amplify their brand? Because the more authentic they can be, the more authentic the brand is represented, right? And I think it's good for retention. I think it's good for recruitment too. I think if somebody sees an employee having fun at work and they're making the drinks and they're putting their own spin on it and people are happy and they're excited and they're getting lots of likes and views, to me, it's like, I want to work for that company.
100%. Yeah. And it's an interesting one because I think you have, as a result, these kind of smaller micro brands start to crop up because obviously you have the umbrella of Starbucks, but what's great is you have these kind of localized characters or figures that people start to see on social media of your local Starbucks, and you start to form a relationship with them because you have the proximity. They're much closer, and you have so you've got obviously the relationship overall with Starbucks, then you have your own relationship with that small, your local store and the people who work there, which 100%. Is brilliant and is needed.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, so I think we're going to see a lot more of that. I know the recent Cannes, I saw a lot of people talking about micro creators and this idea that they can actually, like exactly what you're saying, that they can help a brand evolve in a way bigger way than the big advertising dollars used to get us. And so I think we're going to see a lot more of that in the coming years.
100%. I mean, literally on my LinkedIn feed just before, I don't know, it's probably gone now, but it was something like, Gamma, the AI presentation company. I think I saw something that UGC generated something like 50 million in revenue or pipeline for them. It was some kind of stat, but the point was UGC and big number of money go together.
Yes, and this is EGC, right? So it's employee.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, and so the more. And again, going back, the less you have to incentivize that and the more you can just amplify and help employees feel like they're being supported to do that, the more authentic it will be.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And in terms of, obviously I saw you at Converse before and you were doing the kind of employee stuff. Could you tell us a bit about that, what that was like and what you kind of took from there into your next role?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you're part of the Nike Inc. family when you work at Converse. And so there's nothing like working at Nike, right? I mean, it's like the ultimate dream brand to work for. I learned so much in my 5 years there. I think the biggest thing, and unfortunately, it was that I was there during the pandemic. And so, obviously my experience was a little bit different because of the experience we were going through in the world. However, all that being said, and although I wish it never happened, I obviously learned so much working for, a brand with 100,000 employees. And my role was to make sure all these employees were safe, educated, and knew what was happening on a day-to-day basis, right? I mean, we had employees in China in factories. We were talking about the disease back in December prior to, because we needed to make sure our product was getting out safely, but also that our team members were safe. And so it really was just an incredible learning ground for any communications professional, but really any brand to go through that, especially
100%, yeah.
Retail brand. And so, I think it was an incredible experience. I think learning about the power of brand was something that I took so seriously there. And I think you come to a company a little bit less known as a big brand like Exos, and what I brought here is it's even more important that we take it so seriously.
Yeah.
We're so particular about how we talk about what we do and the container at which we deliver that. I mean, that's what Nike's done so well, in Converse, right? The stories that they tell. People talk about their sneakers like they're their children.
Oh my God, yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So, I think how do you build that loyalty? It's a masterclass in it at Nike and Converse.
And the other question is like, your title is kind of integrated events, marketing, that kind of stuff.
All the things, yes.
Could you, and there's so many, I was laughing with a friend the other day, and there's so many ways that marketing titles are getting changed now. So sometimes it's like growth engineer, sometimes it's like you're saying you do GTM, but actually you're not doing sales. There's a lot of things going around. Like, what does your actual day-to-day look like? And what's your kind of actual remit?
Yes.
That's the first part. And then the second part is I'd love to know, off the back of that, what are the types of AI use cases that are really helping you and your team in your day?
Yeah. So my role is a big role because we have a small team. And so we're all wearing
How many people in the team?
There's about, with freelancers and supports, about 15 of us supporting the brand. That being said, we're a global brand team. We have a few people in the businesses as well and support. So I would say overall, people focused on marketing at the company, probably closer to 20.
Yeah.
So as you can imagine, small but mighty. But I lead our brand team. I lead the brand and experiences at the company. But my craft is communications, and my craft are events and integrated campaigns. And so this idea that how do we at an awareness level really drive as many eyeballs to the brand as possible, whether it's through experiencing one of our events or, like I was mentioning, going to some of these campuses and bringing the power of Exos, hosting people at our facility, to social media, organic and owned content. My team oversees that, as well as, PR and internal communications, which is a huge piece of my role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what's spot on there is I was watching a YouTube video on the train this morning about a guy who's just invested in one of the fastest growing jiu-jitsu centers. And his point was they did an event with a jiu-jitsu open day, which went really well, but they didn't have the content ready to go and shoot, and it only got released a week later. Yeah. And I think to that point, so much of it now is you need to move much faster at the speed of culture to kind of pump stuff out, and the half-life of content is very short now. Could you tell us a bit more about, because you've got that setup where you've got people coming in, Mahomes coming into Phoenix or whatever it might be, and you've got to get that from a static format of in-person to hundreds of thousands of people to see it. How do you balance the two? Yeah,
it's difficult. I will say though, we're pretty locked in with our facility leadership, and who's coming in and who's going and coming. I have a fantastic social media / content creator who worked for the Cardinals and big teams prior to coming to Exos. So he understands the zeitgeist of the athlete and understands how to be on the field without being on the field, and he's so good. And so he's in it. He's at the facility. He works there. He's doing anything from capturing content to editing video to posting on our social channel. So he's a unicorn. I know that that role does not exist everywhere, but yeah, we're very lucky to have him. And I think too, it's about being connected with your leadership teams and the people who are running those facilities, or running the on the ground kind of front line, because to me, they have the pulse of what's going on. And so at any given point, they're texting him and being like, "Hey, Jesse, come in. We have this great athlete coming in," or "Hey, we're going to have a team in today and we think it'd be great to have them on camera. And sometimes it's just logging the content and then we have it for later.
Yeah.
And then we can kind of pull things together as we need. But like Combine, for instance, he goes to every single facility. He's there getting all the training, getting all the pieces, getting all the interviews on camera. And then as Combine rolls out, he's putting out the content so that we're ready to go.
And for kind of certain Europeans or English people who have no idea what Combine is.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. So the NFL Combine is we call it the biggest interview of NFL's athletes' career because they basically go and they do drills in front of scouts, NFL coaches, and athletic directors to basically interview for the team. And then what happens is a few months after the Combine, they get drafted. So, and depending on how well they do in the Combine, actually puts them where they're going to be in the draft list. So it can be the difference between, if they don't perform at that moment, it can be the difference between like tens of millions of dollars that they're offered.
You don't want to have a bad day.
You don't want to have a bad day. And so our job, they come in December, the athletes, and they're training for basically 3 months to prepare them for the Combine. So they're going to train the fastest 40-yard dash. They're going to train how high they can jump. They're going to try. I mean, it's like very, very specific skill sets that ultimately obviously makes them great players. But, and then they also do position specific training as well. So,
and on that part as well about the kind of AI use cases, which is kind of really helping your team. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah. So I think it's interesting right now. I mean, I don't think this is a new thought. I've heard everyone saying this, but I do think that there's no longer a competitive advantage in terms of creating content, unfortunately, right? But I think there's a competitive advantage in what's worth creating, right? So what are the questions we need to be asking? Because when we talked earlier this week, I was like, I want to make sure I really articulate this. Like, to me, the questions we're asking right now are, what problems are we solving? Like we talked about before with the buyers. What deserves to exist? Because I think there's a lot of people just like cranking AI content, but actually not thinking about like what deserves airtime and does this ultimately support our business strategy and how will it create value? And I think that's a big question we're asking right now. Like, how is the brand in service of business and how does AI help us accelerate that? So we use it on a day-to-day basis to accelerate research, create first drafts of things, brainstorming, repurposing content, and summarization. I think that's a big one for me. I used to spend days summarizing articles and research, and now that no longer needs to be taking me that much time, right? So now we're saving that time that we're using that saved time on strategic conversations, relationship building, alignment, going up and down into the sides of us, right? And really on the larger business decisions that matter. And so we don't have to spend as much time on the creation because we know there's a tool that's going to help us create what we need.
Yeah. No, I love the way that you articulated the fact of it's about kind of deciding what gets airtime. I think that's so true. It's very similar in software engineering where, you now have all these code generators that can generate code. And now the engineer's role, instead of actually creating the code, is kind of deciding what do I actually build and what's going to be best for the user, which is very much exactly the same principle in marketing. And it's funny, I wrote a post this morning speaking about Jensen, the CEO of NVIDIA. He just joined X about a week ago. And Denny's did a really good post on X that went super viral, kind of linking the fact that Jensen was talking about open weight models and Denny's are kind of open all the time. And there was kind of a Venn diagram with, knows the importance of staying open. And obviously, and Jensen was also a busboy at Denny's for 5 years before he was founder. Which is perfect. Which is brilliant. And the point that I was making was the fact that I think, to your point about research, like what AI should enable us to do and marketers is spend less time in the weeds of the reporting, the analytics, all that kind of stuff, but allow us to have more creative freedom to come up with those kind of unorthodox ideas, which we can't plan for. Those aren't in the calendar. We don't know when they're going to happen. And when they come up, then we can act.
That's right. And we have all the tools to help us act quickly now, right? Whereas before, how long would it take you to write copy, have multiple options for the team to review, and like we're not doing that anymore, because now the voice has already been built. It's built into our agent, and we're able to just plug it in and play it. So agree.
100%.
But yeah, we've recently been working on some refreshing of our brand and refreshing of our mission, vision, and values. And I will say, like, without our AI tools, it would have taken way longer to do that, right? But we've gotten to such an incredible place because of them, not in spite of them, which is nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And for the, we spoke about in the kind of the prequel about this like AI reality versus hype, and where AI is actually helping versus where, the human layer is a non-negotiable. Could you kind of tell us a bit more about that side of things?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's basically what I said earlier. I think that the idea that it's making us faster is great. And brand strategy makes sure that the business moves in the right direction. And so if it can help us move faster, we're going to hopefully get to growth faster. I think, unfortunately or fortunately, technology helps us. It changes the way we execute. So it's changed how everybody's operating. But I think that it also changes how we create value. And I think that's the difference between the reality versus hype. I think it's like the teams that can really understand how AI can help you create value are the teams who are going to continue to win. Like Denny's, great example.
100%.
Right? And so instead of it just feeling like it's just churning content and we're just posting to post, how are we actually thinking strategically and using judgment? I think the word judgment, human judgment, is what kind of bridges the gap between reality and hype.
100%. It feels a bit like, we've got almost like a German Shepherd that's trained to a really high ability, but you kind of need to make sure that it doesn't attack your mum, but it attacks a burglar. Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of, and that's where the judgment part comes in.
Exactly. Yes. If it's trained to attack, make sure it's attacking the right thing.
Exactly.
Yes.
And something else, which is you guys have a kind of B2B to C model.
Yes.
Could you talk to us about that and some of the challenges that happen because of that model?
Yeah. And I talked about it a little bit before, but I do think ultimately you're not trying to tell different stories. And I think that that's where even us have gotten stuck. We have multiple buyers and different users, but you're helping the different audience see themselves in the same story, right? I talked about it before with the difference between the CFO and the employee. To me, it's one brand strategy with multiple expressions. And depending on where you're at in the funnel, the sales funnel of that, how you experience us, the story will be the same, but how you experience us because of the problems you're trying to solve may look a little different, right? And so our opportunity is that our buyer is not always our user. And that's been the biggest challenge, right? Even with the athlete, we actually don't sell to the athlete. We can. Athletes can come in and train with us directly, but most of the time we're working with their agents, right? And so this idea that you're actually working with like someone who's architecting performance for a team or architecting performance for an athlete, very different than, right? Their goals are very different than the athlete's goals, but we want the story to be the same. We want the athlete, right? We want the athlete to be just as excited to come to Exos because they know who we are. They saw us on social maybe, or they saw a cool video or whatever. But we also want the agent to understand how we're going to make them money, right? That their athlete's going to succeed because they came
100%. It feels very much, when you have a champion in a deal, when you're selling to someone who's maybe, let's call it a VP to a CMO, and you have communicated to the VP, which, the VP is the agent in this sense.
Yes.
And they understand and they know that this could be good.
Yes.
But then the difficulty is you've got this middleman to then communicate to the CMO, which is the athlete. The agent might say the wrong thing to the athlete, and then you've lost the athlete.
Exactly.
Yep. So no, it's a difficult one. And the other thing we kind of spoke about was like, you guys said you were doing some cool things with personalization.
Yes.
Could you maybe mention that? Because I think especially now where people are getting bombarded by so much different outbound and messaging. And I think a lot of brands have done personalization in almost the wrong way of kind of like an AI slop personalization.
Yes.
But then also, I think you should be using AI for a bit of personalization in a way. So it's getting the balance. Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah. And I think AI has its rightful place as it relates to like CRM and more of the direct to the one-to-one tools that we have to help us move faster. Absolutely. But I think where it's, especially in the B2B to C experience that we're building, and I'll give you examples. So we serve 3 audiences, right? We have enterprise buyers for our corporate wellness business. They're focused on business outcomes for their companies, right? We have client partners. So they're focused on implementation and adoption at the facility that they're at. And then we have end users, like I said, the athlete, the employee themselves, a practitioner who's looking to purchase programming from us. And they're focused on their own health and performance. Okay. So those are just 3. examples. The brand promise stays the same and the proof changes based on who's listening. So what we are able to do and where AI fits into that personalization is how we communicate it, not what we stand for, and making sure that our brand strategy provides the guardrails and AI helps to scale the relevance of that promise, right? And so basically, as it relates to personalization outside of AI, our team is really like thinking about how do each of those buyers operate in their day and what do they need to succeed and how can Exos fill that gap? And so we're doing things like personalization kits to people directly. Like we're building that relationship and we're really nurturing it. We're providing case studies. We're providing, hey, this is a great article to share with your boss. Like you said.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
That's
and
nice.
I know it's a small thing and I know a lot of people do it, but I think it's like, where can you put the personal touch? The
100%.
Where's the hospitality part?
And I also think that, you mentioned that a lot of people do it, but I think that a lot of people don't do it very well. I think a lot of people will, just say almost to a blanket statement, but a lot of people, what they won't do is spend the time to find the right article that they know this person is actually interested in and then share that.
Yes.
And that's, maybe an extra increment of,
Yes. Or I, one of our inside sales team members who I adore, he had a great idea. He was at a conference and he met someone that he thinks would be a great, warm lead and is interested in potentially moving forward in conversations. Great. He remembered the tidbit that she was a marathon runner. Right. And so he followed up with a few articles. He pulled one of our videos about marathon running of one of our methodologists talking about he made it just a one step further.
Exactly.
Of the hospitality.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. It's just doing that extra bit, which, 98%, 99% of people don't really want to do. It's as soon as something feels like it's extra effort or whatever, usually that's a sign you should keep going through it.
Yeah. But I think it goes back to your employees or your sales team are your biggest asset as it relates to brand and how that shows up. That extra hospitality experience you're providing is a memorable hook for somebody because when they are in the RFP process and they're about to bring on a new big vendor to come in for wellness, they're going to think, oh my gosh, remember that guy I met at that conference who sent me, whatever, running shoes, whatever it was,
exactly.
right? I just think it goes a long way. It's the same thing in the hospitality industry. Why do you think you go to a hotel and you feel amazing when you're treated amazing? It's the 100%. Same. To go back to that hotel, it's the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what I always like to do to kind of end is do a bunch of quickfire questions.
Boy, okay.
So, and it's funny, some people are quickfire, some aren't. But the first question is, if you could be CMO at any company of your choosing, which company would you pick and why?
Oh my gosh, I think my own. I think at Exos. I know that sounds so cheesy, but I've worked really hard on building this team and building our infrastructure. And we've been through a lot of change and transformation. And I would love to see it through and be able to lead even further.
Love that. And if you couldn't pick Exos, where would you pick?
There we go. Let's see. I'm super crushing on Abercrombie right now. I think is doing some really
they're a bit of a comeback, aren't they?
Yeah, I love their comeback. We'll go with Abercrombie.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And what's the last thing that you typed into ChatGPT or Claude?
Okay, so I've been doing this thing. Probably don't tell our dietitians. But I've been doing rate my day.
Tell us more.
Yeah. So I at night before I go to bed, I'll say, okay, this is what I ate today. Here's the activity I had. Here's how much sleep I got. Sort of like with my Whoop, but it gives me like a little score before I go to bed. And so last night I got a 9.
That's really clever. I like that.
Yeah. Last night I got 9.5 out of 10, so I feel pretty happy about that.
Exactly. You can also, I'm sure, put in some inbuilt bias in there, so you just get a really good score all the time. No. What's your marketing hot take at the moment?
I mean, it's what we talked about. I posted about it this week on LinkedIn. My hot take right now is employee advocacy is your biggest asset. I think there's Gap and Starbucks are onto something, and I think that there could be some really interesting work coming out of seeing some of these internal EGC creators. And how they could be supported and become, like you said, sort of celebritized ambassadors for the company. Yeah.
There's it's either Waitrose or M&S, one of the supermarkets in the UK. I forget which one because they feel so similar. But I think it's M&S. They recently spotlighted their food development director. So she's worked at the company for over 20 years, and she's the one who comes up with the weird recipes and stuff like that, and that are all bestsellers. And they started filming TikToks with her, and she's, this older, lovely lady, very sweet, has never been on a camera. Yes. So it works really well, that kind of contrast. And now she's blown up. And so I think that's a great example of bringing employees into kind of the front of the camera. Yeah. And Currys have been quite good at that as well.
That's awesome.
The kind of PC company.
Yeah.
Also, what's a question that you wish I'd asked you that I haven't?
Oh my gosh. I guess what's your personal mission?
Okay, well, let's do that then. What's
your personal mission? I would love to know.
I think it's a big question, but I think my personal mission at the moment is to just do really good work and kind of do more than I think that, almost the way I describe it is like an internal scorecard of, I think, that ability to kind of keep pushing yourself to know that you're doing really good work on a consistent basis, better than you think you can.
Yeah.
And for me, that looks like at the moment, writing and putting out really good content around AI marketing. And then also we've launched one of the fastest growing AI products ever, and capitalizing on that and making sure that every CMO and business is using it. So that's what I'd say at the moment.
That's awesome. And you're crushing it. So congrats.
And what about yours?
Mine is, and has always been, I think, throughout my career, is helping people connect to a company's mission from the inside out, right? And this idea that how can I help the mission values and the mission, vision, and values glow from the inside out to the point where you have to be a part of us because you're so excited about what we're doing. You have to want to work with us. There's no doubt in your mind that you want us as a partner, or you want to work here, or whoever the stakeholder is, you want to invest in us, right? Because you just believe in what we're doing.
100%. Everything is kind of downstream of team, isn't it? At the end of the day. So
yes.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was an absolute pleasure. Lovely to chat.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome. Thanks, Noah.